I mean, theaterization is operational level integration, but there is a bigger need of something bigger, more integration between civil and military. A lot of debate has gone on. Okay, previously we are not integrated, or differences are there in services. And the world over, it is the same story. Here, it's not only in India. It's always implement changes. I have always followed this in a gradual way, so that the medium can absorb the changes.
Jai Hind and welcome to Deaf Talks. Theaterization or the creation of theatre commands has been much in discussion. Recently, there were some news bits about it, and there was quite a bit of to and fro that took place. We must understand what the theaterization concept is all about from all different sides of the forces so that we can make our own opinion as citizenry of this country as to what we feel about this whole thing. I've done certain videos showing one perspective. I have with me Air Marshal Anil Khosla, who's going to talk to us about his views about this whole concept. Air Marshal Anil Khosla, PVSM, AVSM, VM, is a retired Air Force officer who served as the 41st Vice Chief of the Air Staff. He has clocked over 4,000 hours flying different aircraft like the Jaguars, the MiG-21s, and the HAL Kiran. He has experience both in ground attack as well as maritime roles as well. Today, he writes and he speaks about various different issues in regards, of course, to the Air Force as well as the geopolitical situation around us. Thank you, sir, for taking this time out to join me for this conversation.
Thank you, Adi, and it's always a pleasure talking to you. And we have previously talked on quite a few subjects, and this is also a very live and interesting subject. And in the beginning itself, I'll clarify that these are my personal views and not of the Indian Air Force. I retired 2 years, 2 months back. And so today's topic is quite live, as you said. And what we'll do is that I'm not going to challenge or debate what others have said. I'll give you my views and my perspective. And I've been lucky. I worked extensively with Army and Navy during my service career at all sort of ranks. You know, I did Army Higher Command. I did with AOC JNK with Northern Command, then at Vice Chief, and before that DG Air Ops. I dealt with them. Navy, I was involved. Most of my flying years have been over the sea. Almost 12 to 13 years of my junior ranks, I was in a maritime squadron. And thereafter, I was AOC MAO, a 2-star officer coordinating between air operations between Navy and the Air Force for 3 years. So I've extensively worked with all the three services. I mean, and I worked in all the commands. So I'm not blowing my trumpet. I'm just saying that I'm lucky and I have a good perspective about all the services. What are their peculiarities? What is their culture? How do they work? And today's issue also is a very important one. So his idea is not to have a blame game or name calling, which is going on in the media at the moment. Idea is the tone and tenor will be my views on the way forward, way ahead.
Sure.
And what are the priorities? That's the main aim of the today's interaction.
I think that's the bottom line, sir, the way forward.
Yeah.
So before we begin, there are certain terms which are flying around the place, and as singular terms, we understand what they mean. Something like integration, jointness, higher defense organization, as you said, and theaterization, of course. For a layman who doesn't have any contact with the armed forces, it's very difficult for him to actually understand this concept because it is a little, technical. May I request you to kind of give your perspective on these issues, what they are and how they affect us?
Yeah. So that's very important, to have a perspective. So basically, jointmanship, integration, fusion, then theaterization is the words which have come into the lexicon of people these days. So jointmanship is straightforward. If you have 2 or 3 agencies orchestrating, say, war, then do it jointly is jointmanship. You plan jointly, you execute it jointly, the plan, and you review the plans jointly. So that is what is jointmanship. That means planning and execution jointly. Now, integration is a step further. That means you're not only planning and executing the war jointly, you are integrated in the sense most of the aspects of warfare, including logistics, training, procurements, and other things also are integrated with each other. So that will be a slightly broader perspective, this thing. Then fusion is another word where Chinese have gone into civil military fusion. So fusion is a high degree of integration, you must say. That means you're not only integrated in these actions, but you're fused together. That means in every aspect you are really well knit with each other. So I would say fusion would be another one step higher. Now, theaterization is a concept, basically. Forming a theater. Come on. I mean, in theater, you put in all your resources, whether it is tri-service, Army, Navy, Air Force, or even civilian components, or like China has second artillery or the strategic forces command. So all the elements into one theater under one unified command, that would be theaterization. It's a concept. Now, theaterization, what I want to put in perspective here is that it is one of the ways of achieving jointness. One of the ways, just remember that. It's not necessary that theaterization is the only way of achieving jointness or integration. It is one of the means. Okay. Then some people might, like another few perspectives I'll put into here. Some people might say whether to go in for theaterization or not, that ship has sailed already. Time has already gone past it. Government has given now go ahead and theaterization is coming. We should not be talking about whether to go in for theaterization or not. We should be talking only about how to make it happen. I have a different view on this because the reason is, this is a very serious issue. We should not land up in a situation where we can't undo anything which we have done. So, to my mind, that time is still there to go back to the government and say, okay, the time is not right. We can do it later under different circumstances. As we progress, we'll talk about it. So that is the second perspective. Okay, so what I say is the change should not be done just for the sake of change. Okay, that is one. And second principle we should follow is that fix something which isn't broken. Actually, is American slang which they use, or American saying which they use, that don't fix anything which ain't broken. Okay. Then, so my point is, in theaterization we are talking about, I mean, theaterization is operational level integration, but there is a bigger need of something bigger, more integration between civil and military. That is another higher defense organization. So this is all interrelated. It's not a theaterization in isolation. What will be the equation between PM, RM, NSA, Defense Secretary, CDS, chiefs? I mean, so that's another ball game altogether, and it's all interrelated. It's not only theaterization between the three services and a theater commander laga diya, 3-star or 4-star, whatever you want to decide, and that's the end of it. And, so that is another perspective. So before we come to the subject, I think questions we need to answer are we making changes in a haste? One, is our priorities correct? Two, are we addressing the issue in an ad hoc way? Three, have we adequately considered the problems, deliberated upon it, discussed upon it? Yes or no? Have we done a cost-benefit analysis? Is the benefit accrued is better than better than the effort put into it in terms of money, in terms of it'll involve money spending. Okay, and most important of the questions is, does it need our future challenges? Or if it is changing? Are we taking a step backwards and taking a regressive step into World War II mentality, or are we looking forward and catering for the future of the war, future warfare? The nature of warfare is changing, and the worst fear is that if we are taking a regressive step, whereas we need to go into catering for future warfares, then I'm afraid we might have a problem in this thing. So these are the few things which I wanted to put in perspective. Yeah, Adi.
Interesting, sir. Sir, I'd like to ask you, going forward, what are the differences and, where the, let me rephrase that. What are the areas that the three forces meet on in terms of jointness, integration, and, in terms of operations? Where do they all converge?
Yeah. So, Adi, a very valid question because, three services are involved in this issue. And as I said, I worked extensively this thing. But, there are a lot of areas of convergence between the three services, I must say. And also, there are differences in way of working, the culture, the ethos, the operational conduct of the warfare. Okay, so having worked with the sister services, I have picked up quite a few good things from the other services from Navy and the Army. And I used to quote these during my service career. The Navy does it very nicely this way, or the Army, this thing is very good. Okay, so now as far as this thing is concerned, before we can go on hours about the each service ethos and culture and the working way of working, but that's not the point. I will just tag few issues. One is before we do that, each service has got a role and task. Okay, and each service has got unique capabilities which we call core competencies. Okay, and it is very important that we understand these aspects and respect them. That each service, what is the core competencies, what are the roles and tasks, and not keep stepping on each other's toes. And the idea is all the core competencies or the positives, we bring them in a synergized way so that the net effect is even multiplied rather than added. That is the whole idea. Okay, I'll not go into details as I said. So Navy, domain is over the sea, and whether theaterization or not, it does not get affected much as such because the domain is over the sea. So they're happy so long as they get their air power component integral as well as air power support when they are within the range of the shore-based aircraft. Okay, so that is one aspect. Now coming to Army, so Army, what is obviously being a oldest service and very old service, it's a land-centric approach, obviously, and so unfortunately, because of this old, very old this thing, and it has evolved over the years, the whole strategic thought is dominated by the land-centric approach. Okay. Then second peculiarity is I'm not saying it in a derogatory term, but I've noticed and others have also saying they have this under command syndrome. That means all the assets which are there, they should be under their command and control. They should be under them so that they can dictate, okay, this issue, this thing to be held here, this thing to be. Sharing is much lesser like Navy. Navy, on the other hand, on the ship, the bunks and all the other things are very in short. So they're shared. Even the rooms, the cabins, the bunks, everything is shared. Whereas Army's way of operating is different because it's under command, it should be. So that they can, orchestrate the war better in that way. So I'm not saying there's a negative, but it's a way of working. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, now, other thing, Army is, this is a major difference between Army and the Air Force. The Army working is down the line. Okay, your areas of responsibility are very well delineated, marked, AOR. Okay, what do you call, command area is this much, uske niche core area is this much. Okay, then division area of responsibility is this much, brigade is this much, battalion is this much. Even in battalion, it will be, company-wise area segregated. Air Force way of working is slightly different. Assets are always meager because they are costly. So always, and air war is orchestrated at a higher level. So it is all centralized planning and then decentralized execution. So that is the difference. No. And the Army has got a lot of layers, whereas the Air Force has got only 3 layers. Air headquarters, then command, and then station, and you can say 4 layers. And but for fighting wise, command, and then station, and then squadrons. Okay, so this is the major difference of way of operation, the layers being different, and also top-down and centralized planning and decentralized execution. This is a major difference in the way of working. And then, of course, Air Force is technology intensive, that everyone knows. It can operate into operational, tactical, and strategic levels simultaneously. I will not go into air power peculiarities and this thing. Okay. So in Air Force, there are no clear-cut AORs or boundaries or this thing. And broadly, commands are there, but we have command understanding also. It might be getting airborne from one command, landing in another command, addressing targets of both the command. All that goes on, and that's okay. Okay. Now, other thing is, Army always sees the Air Force, like this is coming in the media also, a lot of people are saying, as a airborne artillery. Okay, our support service. That is what some upheaval has been created by some utterances and all that. But Air Force feels, on the other hand, that no, we are not support services. Those are World War II mentality. Now we have gone much ahead. I mean, the capability-wise, we're much ahead, and we should not be treated only by as a support service. So 2 remarks I will make before we move forward. Okay. So one is, air assets is a very young service, Air Force. Within 100 years moved forward. And you can imagine the pace at which it has advanced, that after the first aircraft flew, the Wright brothers, within 15 years, a new service was born. Can you imagine? Within 15 years, a new service, that is Air Force, was born. Okay, so air assets, the potential is very, very high, very, very high as far as war fighting is concerned. So now what has happened is every service, I'm not talking about India now, I'm talking about world over. Every service wants the air arm. Okay, and every service wants the air assets and employ them as per the tenets of their service. That is what is happening. Now, army wants the air assets and wants to employ the as per the ground war, land centric war. Navy wants the air assets and employ them as per the naval warfare tenets. Correct. Now, in our context, in Indian context, the resources are very, very limited. One. Secondly, these resources are costly. Air assets are costly. Flying machines and the systems and the thing. You cannot afford them, all of them. US has got 4 air forces here. Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines also have got an air wing, and their assets are individually more than our each service assets. So what I'm saying is that everyone wants it, but we cannot afford it. The next thing is what happens is in this shortage, it's question of division of poverty rather than distribution of riches. So what we happens is we start encroaching on each other's roles and tasks, and we want the assets. So that is what problems come in. Okay. Then this issue of theaterization is basically viewing the problem in two eye views. Bird's eye view and the worm's eye view. I'm not saying the worm's eye view in a negative sense. Some people might troll me that you're using a wrong word. It's a way of saying that from the ground centric approach and from the air centric. So that is the whole issue. Yeah, Adi.
So before I actually go into the entire discussion that we've kind of, I've in terms of the questions that I've prepared for you, one thought comes to mind, sir. What about force multipliers, sir? In this side of a scenario where India is, again, as you mentioned, in our fighting force in terms of the fighter aircraft and so on and so forth, our numbers are low. This is also one big factor which is kind of coming up because the force multipliers could be used to improve our efficiency, improve our range and stuff like that, but we don't have the numbers currently. I'd like you to comment on this.
It's not only force multiplier, Adi, it is even fighter aircraft strength is very, very low. It is 30 scorns. Now we have multi-role, multi-omni-role, swing role aircraft, which can, so we cannot say that that is an air defense aircraft or that is only grounded. Those days are gone now. Okay, plus force multipliers like combat support aircraft, which are very, very essential. AWACS, eyes in the air, FRAs, all these aircraft, special aircraft like C-130. Their numbers are limited. You can't fritter away in penny packets and divide them and all. A lot of arguments are going on. No, it's not frittering. Now also they are allocated to command. Let's not get into all that. But the fact is, being an Air Force officer for 40 years, I've realized, I'm telling you, centralized planning is the only way this can happen. Okay, now that you asked me this question, although I'm not divulging anything, last two major exercises which Air Force has done were very, very fruitful. One was done keeping two fronts in mind and the switch of forces from one side to the other. That was the last one. And the previous one was another exercise which was very important, China-centric with the limited resources we have. And both the exercises came out, we introduce certain strategic high level procedures, and I would not say only procedures and concepts to how to utilize these meager resources. And the only way was the centralized planning and the air headquarter coming into the play in a more way than normally it would have done. You're getting my point? The air headquarter generally doesn't get into the nitty-gritties of this thing, but we introduce some concepts because the forces required to swing from one side to the other in case of, and swing fast. So certain things we introduced. So what I'm trying to get at is that meager resources, you cannot really delineate and say, okay, you will operate only here or there, which is another fear of the Air Force in this scenario. Yeah, Adi.
Interesting. So, that actually puts a lot of things in perspective. When we talk about operations today, it's kind of more flexible and mobile. Both are similar birds, but our aircraft, today's air power is something like that. So that's something that we all must understand. So with regards to the approach towards this whole thing, the argument is that there are most of the countries, most of the powers, military powers of any sort in the world have got this particular thing done. So we need to do it. For a better future and better tomorrow and stuff like that. fair enough taking that, but I'd like to know that, are we just going for it because it needs to be done, or is it that we have done studies, done research, and it tells us? Because the answer that you gave to me in the previous question is completely opposite to what I'm asking you. So I'd like to know what has been our approach towards this. Are we just doing it because it's something that everybody's done?
Yeah, so maybe if you have to shorten and rephrase your question, that is, are we blindly copying someone? Correct? Are you referring to that? I think. Okay. See, integration is a continuous process. Okay, and as the warfare changes and also the capability of the services change, you have to change the integration level, and you have to. This is a continuous process. A lot of debate has gone on. Okay, previously we are not integrated, or differences are there in services, and the world over it is the same story. Here it's not only in India. So integration is a continuous process. Now, whether to integrate through theaterization or something else, whether to prioritize our integration, this thing, that is a question which I feel is more important than what we are squabbling about. Now, as far as the question you asked specifically about blindly following the, references are being given to US and China. This is done recently, and US did it, that 86, I think, 86, yeah. So that makes it 35 years back, 3.5 decades back. Okay, so as far as US is concerned, no. So my point is, people are intelligent here. So the people who are dealing with it, I'm sure they must have done this. And generally, what I said is that you pick up examples or pick up the good things from various other models, and then tailor them according to your needs and your circumstances, your environment. Right? So I'm sure that must have been done. But let me put few things, like you're talking about US model. Okay, now US has got a global aspiration and global responsibility. One, he has got no threat on our homeland. Earlier it was zero, now it is like about terror. You can say a little bit of terrorism is a threat which has come in. He covers the entire globe. His theaters cover the entire earth, the entire globe. Area of his one theater is 10 times size of India. Okay, if you talk about Indo-Pacific theater or something. Resources wise, as I said, he's got 4 air forces equivalent. Army, Navy, Air Wing, as well as the Air Force, and the Marines also got this thing. If you take total number of aircraft, then thousands, 5,000 plus 5,500 or something. The Navy has got some 3,000 aircraft, this thing. Fine. I'm not saying Indian Navy should not get. But can we afford it at this stage? Do we have that kind of money? As US Air Force, you can get an idea from US Air Force, but you need to have resources also of equivalent. You should have economy also as big as then only you can afford this resources. Okay, so they have got 7 geographical commands and 4 functional commands: cyber, space, special ops, and strategic. Okay, biggest thing is they have an established, successful defense industry supporting their defense services, including very high level of successful aviation industry, their own aircraft, and not one, many types. Okay, they have 800 bases overseas. So when you're comparing, I mean, where is the comparison? Where is this thing? Now you come to China. China has gone into theaterization. Okay, but there is a difference in the theater. If you're between US and China, if you see, the Chinese theaters are only on his land at the moment. Okay, when he gets more powerful, he will also get into global theaters. But at the moment, there are only 5 theaters which are on his mainland. Even that, the WTC, the Western Theatre, which is set against India, but against India, it has got boundaries with, I think, 11 or some more than 11 countries. I haven't counted, but I think it is somewhere, definitely more than 10 countries got border, WTC. His area is about 1.4 times that of India. Now, there, the defense services are owned by the party. They use the defense services to rule the country. This theater of WTC is not it's not huge because it covers the entire Indian border. It is because if you see the map of China, that area is sparsely populated. It has got hill, it has got desert, it has got desert area. So you need lesser force or wider area, lesser forces to rule the country. Whereas the other areas, which are 4 sectors, other 4 are thickly populated. So their sizes are smaller. Okay, that is, if you notice the map, if you compare the theaterization map with any other population map, road map, railway map, and other maps, they have going into expeditionary capability. Sooner or later, they will get into it. Once again, they have common thing with the US is their defense industry is also quite well off,
Homegrown. Homegrown.
including aviation industry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're producing their own defense. So this is the thing. Now, my point is not. I'm not saying that you do not pick up from US or China or something. What I'm saying is pick up some good things here. Like I'll tell you, civil military fusion, which China has done. In terms of technology under 6 verticals, in terms of logistics, in terms of this thing, anything which comes into civil is simultaneously looked into how can it be used into military. Human resources, your technology, your logistics, everything, infrastructure. Okay, China, why don't we pick up good things? Air Force and Navy, they are given equal status to PLA. Earlier, there was a subset of it. It was called PLA Navy and PLA Air Force, PLA. Nowadays, they've given them equal status. They have given equal status to second artillery. They have made a joint strategic command to look into gray zone operations and information warfare and other technology infusions. Why don't we pick up these good things? Cyber warfare, space warfare, info warfare, gray zone warfare, technology infusion, strategic support. I'm saying these are the things. Why don't we pick up rather than, just picking up one theaterization? It's not a solution for everything. So that's what I'm saying. Blindly means it's not blindly copying, but we should pick up some good things and put it on higher priority rather than theaterization at the moment. As we talk further, I think things will become clearer. Yeah, Adi.
I'd like to ask you clarity. So you're basically saying that we should pick up need-based integration, start with that, and then move forward. Is that what you're trying to say?
Priority-wise, yeah, we'll cover the priorities subsequently.
Fair enough, sir. Fair enough. A lot of commentary, and you also mentioned it, that is the timing right now with the kind of, and this is something obviously a lot of, one thing everybody understands having worked in any industry, that when you change something, everything is kind of disbalanced. It takes a bit of time for people to adjust back. Even when somebody goes on a long leave and comes back, it takes him a couple of days to kind of set back into his job. It's not something like a switch. And in those little times, mistakes can happen. So is the timing right for us to do something like that, looking at the fact that we've got for the lack of a better word, belligerent China and a Pakistan, which is, today there was some news about some ceasefire violation that happened in one Naushera sector. Of course, not with the Pakistani army, but with some terrorists. So it's an unpredictable neighbor. Do you think the timing is right?
Yeah, my mind, this is again my opinion, as I keep saying again and again, that theaterization is not the only solution at the moment. Second thing, any major change which you bring, we have to keep three things in mind. One is the time right? That means, is the environment correct? Okay. So what are the geopolitical situation? Is it conducive to make any major changes or not? That is very important. And time, the question has got two connotations. One is that time means, is it really time come to implement it? And secondly, time frames of implementation. Are we, एक ad आता था, जोर का झटका धीरे से लगे. Are we going too fast, or are we doing it in a phased manner? These are the two aspects of this question. So I will talk about the first aspect, that is the timing correct for now? Okay, a lot of people are saying that theater command should have come in much earlier and all that. Okay, my view is no. It's abhi bhi idea ka time aaya nahi hai. That's what my view is. Okay, we should not make changes in a haste. All right, and a lot of people are saying no, it is already charter given by the government and time frames also been given by the government. No, these charter and time frames were given when the CDS was formed. Now, who's given the draft? Okay, the government won't have come out on its own. Somebody must have suggested to them. Even if it is suggested, I think we can still go back to the government and say, okay, now the time is not conducive and we need to deliberate more and whatever it is, and we need to have a relook and review. Okay, now coming to the question proper, that is your first one, that is the time right? Firstly, time is not right to my mind. The environment, you've seen Galwan and China's attitude, pandemic. You've seen how belligerent and aggressive China was. He's made his intentions very clear. and now is getting more and more powerful, this attitude will continue to be more aggressive and this thing. Collusive threat is there from Pakistan. This thing, the collusivity is increasing. The resources at the moment are very meager in all the three services. Air Force is down to 30. Navy is short of ships. Navy is short of submarines. Navy is short of aircraft carriers they want. Army needs desperately modernization in each and every arm of it. Okay, it needs modernization. It needs equipment. It needs weapons. So economy is down. There is no way we can allocate more resources to defense services. The paisa nahi hai itna. Money is not there because of pandemic. The economy is down. So considering these 3-4 factors, I don't think the time is right at the moment. Now, second thing is always implement changes. I have always followed this in a gradual way so that the medium can absorb the changes. If you change everything suddenly and abruptly, there is a problem of medium not being able to absorb the changes and the collapsing. And at this stage, with this environment, we cannot afford that collapse to happen. Okay. Then I've heard, so bottom line, if you want to say that is one quote which says is, do not rock the boat during the storm. Okay, I've written this article also on my blog, do not rock the boat during the storm. So it will amount to doing that. So at the moment it's a storm condition, we should not rock the boat. Second thing is, even if we rock the boat when there is no storm, we should rock it slowly. Okay, so that it does not capsize. That is what I've been trying to say in a phased manner. So I think this about sums up my idea of whether timing is right and the phased manner of implementation. Now in the media and these debates and all, I keep hearing the CDS when it was formed. Also, I heard this that he has to hit the ground running. That means he's got no time and all that. I mean, that's not correct. CDSs will come and go, but this institution, this will continue working. These services will continue working. The country will stay. So whatever we do should be very, very well considered and thought of. Okay, it's not that इस tenure में 2 साल में ही होना चाहिए. Okay, even if the diktat is given, we should try. But if it is not working out, we should review it. It's not a gospel. It's not a God's this thing. Okay, so do not rock the boat during the storm. Rock it slowly. Okay, and secondly, do not make, like one of the air marshals had written, my senior, I remember very nicely. Article I don't remember, but he had written, the heading was make haste slowly. Make haste slowly. So that he was referring to this counter to this phrase which is being hit the ground running and all that. It's not a relay race where in relay race also baton falls or if you fall down then the whole race is lost. It's nothing like that. So this is the gist of it. That means you do whatever you want to do in well calculated, very well considered way, but slowly in phase.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I agree with you. So I think in again a outsider's perspective, and we should do it the armed forces way. Take one step, war game, whatever needs to be done, war game in all aspects, and then move forward. And I hope that message goes where it's supposed to go, because at the end of it, that is the armed forces way. I know it for a fact that the armed forces don't take a step before thinking about what the repercussions would be. So.
Yeah.
So, which brings me to a question that you've kind of mentioned. Ad hoc would be a strongish word, but are we actually doing something like that, sir?
So, as I said, I mean, I have full faith in the present serving hierarchy, and some are colleagues and some have been trained well by our predecessors, and the capabilities are not in doubt whatsoever. And I'm sure they must have done a thorough study, thorough job, and also I've got no doubts in my mind about that. But what is happening is whatever media reports are coming up, okay, our sources are basically media reports and whatever comes out in the open media and utterances by various people in the open domain. I mean, doubt does come in whether we are moving in ad hoc or not. So at the moment, the answer is tilting towards yes rather than no, as far as ad hocism is concerned. I'm afraid of that. Okay. Now, while I'll say this, I'll qualify it with 3-4 things. One is, guiding document. Are we being guided by any document at the highest level? Comprehensive document covering reorganization, jointness, levels of it, time frames, everything. China, how many white papers has he submitted? What direction has he given to his defense forces for modernization from Gulf War onwards? The amount of white papers he churns out and gives the directions, amazing. It's a very, very well orchestrated modernization plan. And he's monitoring and he's doing it and he's getting it and he's achieving it before the timelines. So that direction is required. Do we even have a evolved and ratified joint doctrine to guide us? Even if we go in for this theaterization, the assets of the sister services, so that the top man theater commander is guided by this joint doctrine. We have a joint doctrine, but is it evolved over the years? So what I'm saying is a guidance is required for this properly documented. Second is, AD command, the way it has been announced and it's going through, it gives a total feeling of ad hocism to my mind. Yeah, I'm afraid to say that. There was no mention of it earlier. There was not even a iota of presence in the social media or anywhere. The day CDS takes over, he announces we'll have AD command and start working towards it. To me, it appears, it's being thrust down the throat. That sort of feeling comes in. Then next is, people are calling it low-hanging fruit to be plucked. It reminds me of my childhood. Yeah. In the afternoon, when everyone was asleep, we used to go and steal, mangoes and jamuns and bear and other things from the other houses, trees and all that. Low-hanging fruits. This is national security we are talking about here. It's not a low-hanging fruit. It's not a child's play. So that sort of feeling gives a ad hocism. Third is proposed models. Every day something model comes up. We'll have geography-based. Fine. Okay. Then it comes, no, geography-based, but Northern Command will leave out. Why? Because Northern Command has got peculiarity, it has got borders with both sides, and it has got counter-insurgency. So Northern Command will retain, but we'll have two more land-centric. Then next thing is adversary-based. Okay, we'll have it one for this adversary, one for that adversary. And why did our predecessors make in the army 4-4 commands looking after western and eastern? 4-4 commands each side. Then service-centric. Where have you heard in the world service-centric, land-centric, maritime-centric, air-centric? These sort of ad hoc or frequently changing versions of this thing. Now somebody will say, okay, this is evolutionary or thought process which goes on. But it gives an impression of slight ad hocism to me. Okay. Next is this issue of, suddenly in the end, paramilitary also comes in. That means paramilitary also will be included in it. Now, paramilitary has also got a job of internal security. It comes under MHA. Now, confusion to my mind appears that if you take the paramilitary under the army wing, okay, in wartime it's okay. They come under you and you have more resources and all. But peacetime, their role is counterinsurgency and internal security. Is the army role also becoming this equivalent to your war fighting? Is it becoming your primary role also during peacetime? So it confuses me. Okay, so somebody has coined, I don't remember who, I read it in one of the articles. Sorry, I can't give the credit, so I'm giving a general credit. Somebody said that we are joining at the hips like Siamese twins, and we're not joining at the correct place. Like the Air Force has been saying, at planning level, thinking level, that is the mind level we should be integrating and joining. Okay, next, ad hocism, why it gives the appearances, whether it is top down or bottom up. We are left it to the services to integrate between the three, but is it bottom down or top down or whatever it is? Okay, but what about the higher level of integration? So these things give a feeling as if it's a bit. I'll not leave it at that. I'll just cover one or two. To get it right, we need to have a whole of government approach on this. We need to have a multi-agency. What has been decided now? They decided that team will look into it with 3 vice chiefs, the CISC and the deputy CDS or whoever it is, and all the representatives from all the ministries. My point is, all this should have been done from beginning to make the first draft itself. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's been done now. It is the same. But we should wait for this procedure to evolve in case we need to get everyone on board. So, point is, to get it right, we have to have a guiding document. We need to have an interministerial level team looking into it. We need to sort out the command and control. We need to sort out the charter of duties, responsibilities. We need to change the rules of business, or the whatever it's called, allocation of business and rules of transaction. That means still Defense Secretary is responsible for security of India. So then we need to work out what is the equation between, as I said earlier, starting from top PM, then RM, then NSA, then CDS, Defense Secretary, chiefs. So all those things we need to sort out. And this requires a lot of effort and consideration. It should not be done in a hurry the way we are going about. Yeah.
Sir, So you also mentioned, yeah, I mean, of course, the lowest hanging fruit, as they say, and I mean it with all the light-hearted humor. So it's not something
Yeah.
that I'd believe in, because the Air Defense Command,
Yeah.
looking at the threats, and I've spoken to you about the drone attack that actually happened in Jammu. We went through the various kinds of drones which are available, and I'm just talking about that particular warfare. So this is just a paradigm of the entire battle scene, or a paradigm of the country, which is
Yeah.
the air sector, and it's a large country, so which also entails island territories, economic
Very
zones,
true.
so on and so
Very
forth,
true.
and the threats are multiple. What is your views about this whole air defense, if I may use the word unified air defense command that they're talking about, sir?
Yeah. So I've already mentioned that to me it looked as if just ad hoc thing. Anyway, so let's see what is air defense actually is a complex this thing. See, earlier days, air defense one meant was what was World War II mentality of 40 years back when I joined service. The resources or the weapons, the radars, the aircraft, the surface to air weapons. It's not only surface to air weapons. It's not the chota umbrella which you used to have earlier. Point defense. The air defense has gone into active defense mode, where you're addressing the air defense part in the enemy's territory. Okay, you have VAX, you have long range radars, you have BVR. You are sitting in Bangalore controlling an aircraft in Srinagar and addressing the enemy aircraft, which is just about getting airborne from the front base. So what I'm trying to say is, with this kind of air defense operations, you cannot have an air defense separately. It's a task and role which is enmeshed into the air operations. In the plans, in the tactical plans, in the execution, you cannot isolate it. To my mind, it's not correct. Okay, it's deeply enmeshed and entrenched. Okay, the aircraft has that multi-role, swing role. The aircraft doesn't know whether it's going for air defense or not. You can do it both simultaneously and all. Then, strategic combat enablers you talked about, which is support, which is very essential. AVAX is also very essential. Now, it can give support to other operations, counter air or the offensive counter air, and also air defense. As far as he is concerned, the all aircraft, yeah. So it's very difficult to separate. It's like this, yeah. Air defense is a role of the Air Force. Now, if I say, I mean, it's not a very good example, but if I say Navy, you take Navy, say Navy anti-submarine warfare. Okay, Navy is one of the roles is anti-submarine warfare. If I say no, we should have a separate command for anti-submarine warfare. Will it make sense? Okay, Army, I can't think of something, say, crude example I can give is, say, they do these cordon and search is one of the roles. So should we have a command? I mean, it's not a very good example, but it's what I'm trying to get at is that it's a role of the Air Force. You cannot have a separate thing.
Within the
Okay, then to me, I mean, now what I'm going to say is going to be hard hitting in the sense some people may not like it and all, but to me it appears as if, the way it's being called low hanging fruit is to just show success ki we have done something, or to second what this thing is ki Air Force is making noise, pehle inko de do a command and uske baad let them keep quiet. Then we talk about the other commands. I mean, this impression is being generated and is being thrust down without much of debate, consideration, thought. I'm an old school, if you whatever you want to call it. In my mind is absolutely clear that the air defense is a role of the Air Force which cannot be segregated separately like air defense command. Okay, that's my this thing. Now a lot of examples are coming up in the media. People are trying to justify. Like one chap said, fratricide. They're calling out the Balakot helicopter shot down. I mean, collateral and fratricide is part of warfare. It is going to happen. Do you think if you make air defense command, this will not happen tomorrow? I will be naive. I don't think so. People are citing drone attack on Jammu. That air defense command is not there, so this has happened. Please, yeah. Gray zone operations, we need to understand whether air defense command is there or not there. This is still going to happen. It is unfortunate it happened on the Air Force base. It can happen anywhere. Okay. Then the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard is that air defense command is required to coordinate the airspace management of. I mean, it's the most bizarre thing I've ever heard that you need to make a command because we need to coordinate this thing. It's a procedural issue here. Anyway, that was in the lighter vein. We'll not leave it here. In my mind, the integration as far as AD is concerned, we have come a very, very long way. Okay. And now we have covered full network operations, the entire country. and even to large extent the island territories. Correct. So what we need to do, and it's a continuous process. So we need to take this forward. There is no need of AD command. We need to integrate the things. We need to integrate the weapons and the sensors of all the services and civil, which is happening, and which has happened to quite a lot. They have been integrated in the network. We need to do more on it. Okay. We need to improve the networking. We need to review and rationalize the assets of each service as per your needs and as per your this thing. So there is no duplication. These are all procedural issues. We need to review and rationalize the procedures. We need to enhance the AD capability as far as assets is concerned in terms of weapons and radars, which is happening, and extended entire area of interest. Okay. So all these things are happening, and progress has been quite a bit leaps and bounds. We need to continue on this path rather than making a separate AD command. And AD command forming, I don't think will solve any major purpose as far as cost benefit analysis is concerned. This is my personal take and view on it, and that's what it is. Yeah. Adi.
Of course, now, so, till now we've discussed and you've actually enunciated what the issues that you see in terms of this theaterization concept. Of course, the original concept or the original discussions which are happening behind the closed doors uh, is anybody's guess. But whatever the discussions that we're having is on the information which is available through the open sources. We are
Yeah.
talking about the stuff that are articles that have been written by certain people. They're talking about news snippets which are coming out and so on and so forth. So, looking at all the information which is available today, your own views, people have written extensively about it, and on both the sides, and that's something very heartening. At least people are writing about it and putting out their views. So it's for everybody to actually take a decision, and that's what we're trying to do here as well. What is the way forward now, sir? What do we do?
Yeah. Okay. Very nice. I mean, that is what I always work on that principle. I think it has come from my problem solving hobby. I always look at the issue from one way, that past is past, or whatever happened is happened, a way ahead. How do we go about it? So I have a priority list. Okay. And my priority list goes like this. First, we have already an integrated theater command, or whatever you want to call it, in the form of Andaman Nicobar command. Correct? It's been there for quite some time. We need to give teeth to it. We need to fortify it. We need to empower it. We need to enhance its capability. Okay, why reason is very straightforward. China's plan, PLA Navy, is moving leaps and bounds. Very soon it's going to have two carrier battle group. I think we discussed sometime, I don't remember whether you do or somebody else. And when that happens, he's going to use one fleet in the South China Sea or East China Sea and one in Indian Ocean region. Okay, he's already showing his presence in a very large way. He is going into more aircraft carriers. He is going into more aircraft operating from aircraft carriers. He is looking at a lot of support bases in the IOR region. Okay, so only way into IOR is through that straits. And these Andaman Nicobar Islands are God-given gift, and they dominate those straits. Correct? They are called, the islands and the Andaman Nicobar command is called as a iron curtain. I think we need to make it from iron curtain to steel curtain. So Andaman Nicobar command is like an iron curtain, and we need to make that iron curtain into steel curtain. That is what we need to enhance its capability. Have a similar or slightly smaller structure on the western seaboard. Okay, there also we have islands. This is my priority number one. Second is, we should have a functional command joint, cyber, space, special operations. We have just got till agency level, and this has been dragging for too long. We should have had a command by now. That is second priority, higher priority. Third is we should have a joint structure, whatever level we call it, to look into technology infusion, communications, networks, information warfare, intelligence. I would go one step further, rather than intelligence, ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. These issues, these are to look into the gray zone warfare of future. This is my third priority, highest. Technology infusion, communication, networks, info warfare, and ISR, to look into these aspects, enhancing these. Then we need to look into joint structure or integrated structures. You can hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah. To look into aspects related to logistics, training, maintenance, repair. These have got a lot of scope for convergence, and this is where we can save money. We can make our system efficient, right? Then comes theater warfare, theater command or something, maybe in future, but if that is right time when the economy is high, assets are high, our aspirations have increased. Then go in for theater command. That is my this thing. AD command, I'm very, very firm in my belief, and as I said, maybe old school or whatever it is, absolutely no. There is no benefit going to accrue out of it. Okay. In parallel, now very important, listen to this. In parallel, while all these other 4 5 priorities which I gave you, we need to look into civil military fusion and the higher defense
Yes.
organization. Now, higher defense, which I'm talking about, is which I have 3 times I mentioned the other senior dignitaries. The military officers versus MOD, more cross posting, more this thing, even higher ranks at higher rank. I mean, nobody will say this, but thought comes to my mind, although a lot of people may not like it. Why not have a defense secretary as military officer or an NSA as military officer? Some of the countries that do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Define the joint structures which are there with the government. Okay. Technology infusion we'll need to look into, because it's our case, it is civil technology intensive, and then offshoot it comes into military. So these are the aspects which should go on in parallel, and it should be guided by a document given at the highest level that this is the direction we should be working on. We should be working out the whole modalities of the and duties, responsibility. This should go on in parallel to what I covered at the lower level integration or the op level integration, whatever you want to call it, of the service.
Agreed, sir. Sure. So now, towards the end of this talk, this whole fiasco, of course, there was theaterization. Actually, I've spoken about it with some other people before this whole fiasco hit the fan, proverbially. But one thing that actually, I think, pained a lot of us who are concerned about the defense forces, and I'm using the word pained in a I'm not using it very freely. The discussion actually went south. These kind of disagreements, of course, are there in every organization. If anybody knows his history with regards to the Second World War, there were disagreements there during the famous charge on the landings in France and everything. There were huge disagreements between the armed forces. And this is a part of the game. That's how it is done. Two people working together, there will be disagreements. But actually talking about it I didn't first of all get the context where it was spoken and why it was spoken at that particular point of time. But talking about it in the open forum, which the Indian Armed Forces are known not to do. One of the ethos of the Indian Armed Forces is that speak little and speak when it's required. And this time, I don't know, I personally get a feeling, it's my personal opinion, it didn't happen. What is yours, sir?
Buddy, I thought we have finished with the subject after giving my views and recommendations and my priority list. Now you're putting your finger into, that beehive or the hornet's nest, I must say. Okay. Since you talked about it, I'll take a few minutes. And I fully agree with you. It pains me also. I mean, this is not the way it should be done. It should not come out into the open media. A lot of people say, no, why not? And it should be a part, open media also is part of the whole process. And it was fine. But I feel that whatever, like I said, it gives the appearance of advocacy. I gave you an example. So finally, it should come out on the media when the decisions have been taken. Okay, this. Anyway, so it's like, like the saying goes, dirty linen in public, washing dirty linen. Actually, it's not dirty linen. This is a new apparel which is being discussed. The new clothes, making of new clothes. But in the old clothes, whatever their shortcomings should not have been discussed in the open media. So now what is happening is news channels are screaming every day. There are discussions going on, and then the self-proclaimed defense analysts and armchair warriors, they are shouting and screaming their opinions and all. Their opinions galore. Like somebody says in India, everyone has got an opinion about everything. Maybe, actually, after defense services, now 2 years plus I've been out, and I had a ringside view of the open media and other things. I've realized one thing, that it's very easy to give opinions when you don't have the responsibility. Very easy to form opinion and air it also. But when you have responsibility, then you think 5 times before doing anything or saying anything. Anyway, all that is fine now. Maybe our interview also falls under that category of what we said, discussing things in the open media. Maybe that also could be considered as that. But what is the harm in these? One is no image of the defense services are taken a beating, which pains me.
Yes.
Okay, we are getting trolled not only in India but worldwide also. So when I see those trolls, it really hurts me. This thing. Second bigger problem, Adi, is that social media has become very powerful. You've seen in election time, you've seen in other this thing. And what I'm scared of is that because of the social media pressure, we should not land up taking a decision which we repent late. That is my major worry. Okay, trolling I can still live with. After a few days, people will forget. But this everlasting effect of social media and wrong decision if we take is going to become a problem. Okay, that is my major view. Now, I'll just tag two more issues, and since you put the finger into the honest nest. One is this social media discussion. What happens is I have a term which I used to use earlier also. I call it stubborn child syndrome. So stubborn child syndrome is you have kids.
No, sir.
No, not yet. Okay, so you'll realize later maybe. So stubborn child is when the child goes into stubborn mode, the logic doesn't help. Whatever you say, he's got a counter to it. So in this social media discussion or the open media discussion, that is what is happening now. So one side is putting logic, the second side is countering it, the first side is countering it, that, and that's going on and on. So there is no logic now anymore. It is just countering the other person's views, and so he gives a 6 point, the Dachav writes 6 or 7 points, countering his this thing. So that is what goes on. So I don't think we move forward ahead in this thing. The fourth thing which is happening in this thing, the Indian Air Force is taking a lot of beating. The Indian Air Force is being portrayed as a villain, putting the spanner in the wheels. Some chap called it words equivalent to a sulking child or something. So Indian Air Force is taking a lot of beating in this thing that we are the ones who have taken, which is not true actually. And this is not only Indian Air Force. It is the Air Force world over. It is the same issue. Other countries, I have interacted with a lot of country forces during my service career, exercises and visits and all. This problem is universal. It is not only with India. Okay, the use of air power, the issues related to air power, issues related to under command, issues related to assets, issues related to philosophy of working, the different services. It is not unique to India. It is universal. Okay, so it is not Indian Air Force only. Okay, actually, Indian Air Force is the one service which is truly integrating with the other services. You tell me, we have structures with Navy, we have structures with Air Force. And let me tell you, I worked in both. I worked at AOC MAU, 2-star rank. There's an interface between the Navy and the Air Force. I worked as a 2-star rank in AOC JNK, which is an interface between the most operational command, that is Northern Command, and the Air Force. Okay, I worked, and we have structures down the line at various levels. So Air Force is a service which is truly integrated with both. And our operations are totally enmeshed with both the services, not that Air Force carries on doing whatever they feel like. So, but in the social media, this discussion, Air Force becomes a bad boy and gets painted that way. Okay, so Air Force has been saying that we should integrate in the terms of, firstly, joint planning and joint execution and monitoring, both peacetime planning as well as dynamic in-war planning. We've been insisting from beginning that we need to plan, sit together and work it out. That is what the game is. Okay. Then, as I said earlier, role tasks are defined, everyone's core competency is defined. We should respect each other and not step upon each other's thing. And we should conjoin or integrate at the mind level and not only physically by making some structure or something. So these are the views about this open media debate and the repercussions and the fears.
No, absolutely, sir. Absolutely. The kind of questions that are being spoken about, especially in social media platforms, it's funny. It just shows the lack of understanding of basic concepts, even which could have been understood by reading a small book. People are asking all sorts of silly questions. As a matter of fact, one of the questions, and I remember us talking about it during the drone attack, is what was the Air Force doing during that time?
Yeah, you're right.
It just shows the lack of understanding about the operations of the armed forces. And I wish there is some way to tell the public or the general populace or the people that are making these comments that listen, it's not as simple as sitting on your couch or on your bed and typing something on a phone. It's way too integral. People's lives are involved in it. And if there are mistakes, the simple cost is blood. It's as
Yeah,
simple as that. I mean, that's the only way I understand it. So, correct me if I'm wrong.
yeah,
And I'd like you to
yeah,
conclude this entire thing, sir, by taking what I said and your own thoughts, please.
yeah. So I generally don't comment, but I will just tell you few things, just two or three issues. One is what I've learned in service and what I always followed. One is what I learned in service is that as you go higher and higher, you realize how less you know. At least I felt it. I didn't. I'm a very average person. Whatever God made me reach, but as I went higher and higher, I realized that I don't. I know need to know a lot of things. Then I learned something from a very senior officer, one Air Force chief, and his strong point used to be he used to call wing commanders equivalent to colonel, junior colonels, and all, and ask about various aspects as a chief, and he used to call them ustad. And his idea was that you are the expert in it, not me. You tell me about these things. So what I'm getting at is that when you go to higher level, you need to know more, and there's no shame in asking. I'm not casting any aspersions on you. I'm just talking about my this thing. Second thing I learned was think before you speak. The senior you become, your words are very powerful. Words are like swords or arrows rather. Once they are released, they will do the damage. So think before you speak. Actually, I have advice to my seniors also in closed door, not open. Sir, like what you said is not correct because don't say it in public because you are now at such a level that it will hurt the sentiments of some of the people. So you have to think before we talk. So bottom line of this is that what I learned was that wisdom does not come along with the post. You have to make an effort to this thing. So firstly, you need to learn, and secondly, you need to be very guarded about this thing. Third thing which I faced was that higher you go, the most difficult thing is to keep your team together, all your branches together, all your this thing together. And the success of your command is that you take everyone along.
Yeah.
So these three things I've learned in service. No aspersions cast on anyone. Now, other thing is whatever utterances are being made. Now there's a fear. If it is scary thought, actually, if it is true that the thinking is that way, and you link it with some other utterances of primacy of a service should be maintained, then it's a very scary thing. That means our thought process is regressive, not progressive. Okay, I'll leave it at that. I will not go any further on this one. My firm belief is always, like I said, everyone has got his own importance and everyone has got this thing. I am remembering one proverb. Yeah, let me recall that. If you must have heard of it, want of a nail, the kingdom was lost.
Yes.
So want of a nail, shoe was lost. Want of a shoe, horse was lost. Want of a horse, the rider was lost for, and because the rider, the battle was lost, and because the battle, kingdom was lost. All for what? One shoe nail. So what I'm trying to impress upon here is that everyone is important. I'll go one step further. In future gray zone warfare, you never know. The people who are looking after signals, engineers, EME, technicians in the Air Force or Navy, whatever equivalent, they may be the most important people fighting the war. I remember, Adi, in 2009, I gave a presentation in Commanders Conference. That time I was looking after something. And I had said that time that the time for cyber warriors is coming in very soon. You may need cyber warriors who may not be having six packs. He may not be the classic short-haired chap. He may be long-haired geek sitting in having Coke and pizza, but he'll be the most important warrior. I said this in 2009. Okay, so artillery we are talking about. Artillery, now the kind of advances which have come in, the weapons, the ranges, the types of warheads, the smart ammunition. China, we keep talking about China. Learn from China. Yeah, the second artillery, they made it into a service, including the surface-to-surface missiles and rockets, and of course this thing. So what I'm getting at is that everyone is important. That's what I followed throughout my service. Yeah. So conclusion, I will say jointness, integration, and fusion. As I said in the beginning, these are the levels of jointness, integration, fusion. These are not only services; they require to be at all levels, even civil, military, and different agencies of the government. Second is all changes should be considered, deliberated, thought of, analyzed, and not ignored. Fourth is the changes should be made at the correct time and also in a phased manner, so that the changes can be absorbed properly. Okay, changes should be made looking at the future of the warfare, future challenges of gray zone, hybrid warfare, and high tech warfare, and not regressive in our approach. And here, Adi, I'll take one more minute, although we're not touched upon this earlier. But my biggest worry is, these changes should not be thrust down the throat. The reason is very straightforward. Some people are advocating that Goldwater Nicholas Act was actually forced upon, and so many generals were sacked because they didn't agree with it and all. That time, US didn't have any threat to this thing. We are in circumstances, as I covered the environment we are in. It'll be a hell break loose situation for us. So we should not do something, thrusting down somebody's throat or doing it something without well calculated this thing. Okay. Bottom line, Adi, is that remedy should not become a disease. We are in the COVID time, so I'll give this example that whatever we do should be a remedy and not become a disease itself. That is my future. This is on the negative side, so I don't want to finish on a negative side. Now I will say I'll want to finish on a positive side. My positive note, I wish in future, when we have the economy, we have the power, we have the assets, we go into theatre command, and those theatres are home theatre, the entire landmass, IOR theatre, and maybe other zone theatres like South China Sea Theatre or Indo-Pacific, maybe. I hope we go into that theatres. So thanks, Adi.
No, so I think what in conclusion, what the Air Marshal has actually taken us across, and I thank you, sir, because you've not mentioned any of the very, very same stuff which is being talked about in the television with regards to ये जहाज उधर क्या करेगा, वो जहाज उधर क्या करेगा, and this and that. We've not touched about that. The Air Marshal has given very clear indications of what his reservations are about the concept. He's not said that we shouldn't do it, but he said that at the moment, with the kind of where we are right now in India, it seems like a little bit of a iffy preposition. As a matter of fact, one of the bottom lines that he said about the iffy preposition is because one, the availability of resources and are not being able to actually manufacture at the moment, and I hope in the next 3 to 5 years we become what we dream to be in terms of, if I just talk about the Air Force, LCA Mark 1A, Mark 2, AMCA, all these things fly out from their hangars, and the production capacity, instead of hovering around on 18 aircraft a year, is increased to, I would say, 50 a year, and India does has the capacity to do that. So once we are there, I'm sure all the people that are saying what they're saying would be behind this as well, because they've got their own reservations. Secondly, what the Air Marshal has also brought out is that the threat levels that we face today and the perceived change that we are putting across, it may be a little bit of a dicey preposition because of two very powerful nuclear nations. Pakistan is not, they've got a decent air force, good technology. As a matter of fact, just to mention, and I don't know, sir, if you will agree with me, they've got more force multipliers than us. For such a small air force that they've got, so they have a danger, and as a matter of fact, when they collude with each other, there's a bigger danger. So it's a dangerous time. Having said all this, I also agree with the Air Marshal when he says that the people that are doing this right now are capable. I'm sure they have taken decisions or whatever steps that they want to after due deliberations with their concerned experts. And we are basically here to deliberate what is there in the open source and public domains. We're not here to, just tell you any secrets. For example, I was peeping inside that room when that meeting was happening or anything of that sort. That's not the case. We are discussing what is there in the public domain with regards our opinions. Thank you so much, sir, for this lovely talk. And I think, once this whole concept comes out into the open, I think we should be able to understand it much more. And but for the time being, I think whatever you mentioned is very important, and it's important for us to know.
Yeah, thank you, Adi, for the opportunity. Although a bit long, this thing. One parting thought: I always, during my service career, also used to follow this, and also I used to tell my juniors also, we should debate. We should fight with each other as far as new concept is concerned. You should give your opinions, and you should strongly feel by it and go by it. And once debate has taken place, but once the decision has been taken, okay, by the top man or the organization or whatever it is, thereafter it is an organization, whether you like it or not, whether you oppose it or not, whether you have reservations or not, then you make it work. So that is what I used to follow in service also. So with that note, thank you very much, Charlie.
Thank you, sir. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.